Welcome to Dread Vale, where chilling stories and dark legends come to life. Subscribe, follow, and share if you're ready to cross the veil.
The 13th Bell. Eloise Martin was a quiet folklore researcher, the kind who found comfort in dusty libraries, forgotten languages, and stories that no one else believed in. When she heard about the remote mountain village of Rosethorn Hollow, she was intrigued. Supposedly hidden between two ridges in Eastern Europe, it wasn't found on maps and barely mentioned online. Only one legend survived. The bell of St. Hallow's Chapel rings 13 times when death walks among the living. It was dismissed as myth, except for one strange fact: no death records exist in Rosethorn for the past 100 years. That was enough to send her packing. Arrival: the village looked like it had been frozen in time. Cobblestone streets, gas lanterns, and thick mist that never seemed to burn off. The people were polite but distant, and when she asked about the church, they all gave the same vague warning. The bell hasn't rung in 100 years, and we'd like to keep it that way. But that night, as Eloise unpacked in the single-room cottage the village had offered, she was jolted awake at midnight by the deep, echoing sound of a bell. It rang once, twice, up to 13 times, then silence. The bell tower. The next morning, Eloise followed the sound's origin to St. Hallow's Chapel, a long abandoned building surrounded by twisted, weeping trees. Inside, the pews were shattered, and ivy crept up the stained glass windows. She climbed the rotting ladder to the bell tower, expecting to find a swinging bell. But there was nothing. The mount was empty. The rope, cut decades ago. On the wall behind it, someone had carved a message. The bell never left, it just found a voice: the grave. At the base of the tower, near a moss-covered graveyard, Eloise found fresh dirt, recently disturbed. She dug. Inside, a coffin. Inside that, a woman in her 30s. Same height. Same hair. Same face. It was her. Eloise stumbled back in horror, her own features staring up at her from the grave, mouth slightly open like it had been screaming. The elder's secret panicked. Eloise ran to the home of the village elder, a fragile old woman with milky eyes and a voice like parchment. Without needing to ask, the woman said, "You weren't supposed to find her." She revealed the truth. "A woman comes to our village every few decades. She looks like you. Sounds like you. Always drawn by the same story. We don't invite her, she just comes, but she never leaves." Eloise demanded answers. The elder handed her a weathered book, the village death register. Page after page of deaths, until it abruptly stopped in 1923. The last name: Elouette M. Scholar. Historian. Unmarried. Deceased. Cause: buried under sanctified soil. The dreams begin that night. Eloise had dreams of fire. Of being dragged from a church by frightened villagers. Of screaming for mercy as they buried her alive beneath the bell tower. She woke up gasping, clawing at her own neck. Her fingernails were black with soil. And in the corner of the room stood a dark figure, tall and silent, its face obscured by shadow, but wearing her clothes. The others desperate for answers, Eloise returned to the church and broke into the sealed crypt beneath the chapel. Inside were rows of tombs. Each one had nearly the same name. Elowen M., 1842. Alyssa M., 1881. Elouette M., 1923. Eloise M., 1959. The names were too similar. The faces on the weather-worn portraits inside resembled her own. Different lives. Same woman. The bell didn't ring to warn of death. It rang to remember the ones who had already died. She wasn't the first, she was one of many. Each of them had been drawn here by a legend. Each of them had been buried beneath the chapel, and each of them had heard the bell before it rang for them. Breaking the cycle, Eloise tried to flee. She packed her things, ran down the hill toward where the road should have been. But the path was gone. Only trees, mist, and the bell, ringing in the distance again. She ran back to the village and screamed at the villagers. No one answered their doors. The elder watched her quietly from a window. That night, the bell rang again. 13 times. The 14th bell. In a final act of defiance, Eloise climbed the tower at midnight and stood where the bell should have hung. "I won't die like the others," she whispered. She closed her eyes and waited. The wind rose. The air turned cold, and the bell rang. Once, twice, all the way to 12, then it stopped. She exhaled. But then, the 14th bell rang. Buried truth. Eloise woke underground. She was in a coffin. breathing, alive. She screamed, kicked, clawed her way out. Her fingers cracked, nails tore. At last, she broke the surface and gasped for air. But the village had changed. The trees were taller. The chapel was rebuilt, and the graveyard had dozens of new stones. She ran to the church. On the steps stood another woman, younger, wide-eyed, holding a notebook. "Hi," she said. "I'm Alara. I'm here researching an old bell legend. I heard it rang recently." Eloise's mouth opened, but no words came. She turned toward the bell tower, and for a moment, just a moment, she heard her own voice ringing. Epilogue. The echo cycle in Rosethorn Hollow. The bell rings not to mark death. It rings to keep the cycle alive. Each version of her returns. Each one forgets. Each one becomes the next bell. And still, the villagers wait. The bell doesn't swing. It doesn't need to. It remembers on its own. The end.